I froze the moment he asked me to come upstairs. At first, I thought nothing of it. It was his house, after all. A place I'd been visiting countless times over the years. That night, the living room was filled with laughter. Soft music playing in the background, and the clinking of glasses. Nothing about it hinted at the storm that was quietly waiting for me, just a few steps away, beyond the door at the top of the stairs. "Can you come up for a second?" he asked, leaning in so no one else could hear. The casual tone in his voice betrayed nothing, but I remember feeling a faint flutter of unease, like the quiet hum of electricity before a storm. I nodded, smiled, and followed him upstairs, thinking perhaps he simply wanted to show me something. Trust has a way of blinding you to the warning signs. The stairs creaked softly beneath our feet, each step punctuating the silence. I tried to make small talk, testing the waters, attempting to sound casual. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to mask the sudden nervousness that had begun to creep into my chest. "You'll see," he replied, not turning around. His words were calm, neutral, but something about them made my stomach tighten. That should have been my first warning. The subtle signal that this wasn't going to be ordinary. As we reached the top of the stairs, the hallway light cast a familiar glow over the wooden floor. But there was something off. The guest room door usually closed. A small barrier between the living spaces and the private corners of the house was wide open. And that's when I saw them. Two people. Familiar faces. Two people who were never supposed to be together in that way. My chest tightened, and for a moment, it felt like my heart had been replaced with a heavy stone, dragging me down with its weight. Time slowed. The air itself seemed to hesitate. They froze the moment they saw me, eyes wide, hands paused mid-gesture. There was no scrambling, no sudden excuses, no attempt to explain away the impossibility of what I was seeing. Just silence. The kind of silence that presses against your chest and makes it hard to breathe. One of them finally spoke, whispering my name carefully, as if speaking softly could erase the reality of the moment. I turned to him, the man who had asked me to come upstairs, my voice trembling, despite my attempt at control. "You knew," I said. He didn't deny it. "I thought it was better if you saw it yourself," he replied. Those words, they have haunted me ever since. There's a calculated cruelty in that kind of honesty, the way betrayal can be served with calm precision, as though it were an art. I stepped forward slowly, my legs heavy as if I were walking through water. "How long?" I asked, but no one answered. That silence said everything. I realized then that I hadn't been blind. I had been hopeful. Hopeful that the late nights, the small half-truths, the conversations that ended abruptly when I entered a room, were coincidences, nothing more. But instincts, they don't lie. They stand there, undeniable, and force you to face truths you've been avoiding. "I need air," I whispered, and no one stopped me. Downstairs, the party continued, oblivious to the storm that had erupted above them. Laughter, music, the clinking of glasses, it all sounded distant now, as if I were listening from underwater. I grabbed my coat and stepped outside, the cold night air shocking me awake in a way that nothing else could. He followed me to the porch. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," he said, voice low. I laughed once, bitterly. "And now I know who you are," I replied. He reached for my arm. I stepped back. "This isn't about them," I said. "It's about you, bringing me up there, knowing exactly what I'd see." He had no answer. None at all. I drove home in silence. Not crying, not shaking, just clear. Sometimes betrayal doesn't announce itself with shouting or confrontation. Sometimes it comes quietly, in steps you take willingly, in an invitation you can't refuse, and in the realization that the person you trusted most had already chosen sides. I didn't need another explanation. I never went back. That night, sleep refused me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that room again, the open door, the frozen expressions, the moment of exposure. What haunted me most wasn't what they were doing. It was how prepared he had been, the way he had orchestrated it like a performance, like he had counted on me seeing it. He wasn't afraid of being caught. He had anticipated it. The next morning, my phone buzzed endlessly. Missed calls, texts carefully worded to apologize, to explain, to rewrite the night in softer tones. I didn't want to hurt you. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. We need to talk. I didn't reply. Not yet. By afternoon, I finally answered one call. I just want to explain, he said. You already did, I replied. You showed me. Silence. Then he tried again. You don't understand everything. I almost laughed. You're right. I don't understand how someone can betray me and stage it like a reveal. His excuses followed. Feelings had grown unexpectedly. He didn't want to lie anymore. Honesty now mattered after exposure. I told him I needed space. Real space. Not a pause, not a break. Distance. And I meant it. The morning after, the world felt different. Not because anything had changed outside, but because my own perception had shifted irreversibly. The streets looked the same. The sunlight fell in the same golden streams through the trees. But I had been forced to confront a truth I could never unsee. I walked through the city in silence, the buzzing of my phone ignored, the messages and calls piling up like a silent avalanche I had no desire to dig through. Each step I took was weighted with clarity. Betrayal doesn't hit you with fireworks. Sometimes it's a quiet, subtle intrusion that lingers, that follows you into your thoughts until every corner of your mind is occupied by it. That's what the night had done to me. The invitation upstairs, the frozen faces, the open door, they weren't just images. They were a lens, one that refracted every moment of hope and trust I had poured into him over the years into something sharper, clearer, undeniable. By afternoon, the silence had become a strange kind of companion. It allowed me to think, without interruption, to replay moments I had brushed off. The late texts, the half-hearted apologies for minor misunderstandings, the way he sometimes avoided eye contact when I asked simple questions. I had always excused these things, giving him the benefit of doubt, choosing trust over instinct. Now, instinct was shouting, finally validated. I finally answered a call from him. His voice was immediately apologetic, the words smooth and rehearsed. I just want to explain, he said, as though explanation could undo the moment, as if reasoning could erase the clarity of what I had already witnessed. You already did, I replied. You showed me. There was silence on the line, a pause where perhaps he realized that nothing he said could change the reality. Then, cautiously, he tried again. You don't understand everything, he whispered. A statement meant to reclaim control, meant to suggest that I had not yet grasped the whole picture. I laughed softly, not bitterly, but with a quiet precision. You're right. I don't understand how someone can betray me and stage it like a reveal. And there it was, the truth in my own voice. Betrayal wasn't just the act itself. It was the performance, the calculated delivery, the anticipation that I would walk into the room and witness it, and that my shock would somehow serve as justification or drama for him. He tried to defend himself. His words spilled out. Feelings had grown unexpectedly. He didn't want to lie anymore. Honesty now mattered after exposure. But honesty, I realized, isn't measured by revelation. True honesty is simple, quiet, and protective of what matters. What he offered was exposure, not truth. I need space, I said. Real space. Not a pause, not a break, not the kind of temporary distance that leaves doors ajar. I needed distance that made me safe. that let me breathe without the weight of anticipation, without the shadow of him lingering over every thought. The days that followed were strangely calm. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting matches, no public collapse. Just quiet. I began noticing things I had ignored before. The compromises I had made, the small silences I had tolerated, the times I had adjusted myself to keep him comfortable. I realized how much I had sacrificed in the name of peace, how much I had trusted him because trusting was easier than questioning, because hope was less painful than reality. Friends asked if I was okay. I smiled and said yes, not because I was fine, but because for the first time, I was awake. Clarity is quieter than drama, but infinitely more powerful. It does not demand attention. It merely exists. And once it exists, it changes everything. A week later, we met on neutral ground. A small cafe. Quiet, familiar, and yet alien in its comfort. He looked tired, older, worn by the weight of his own choices. "I never meant to lose you," he said, his voice soft. I believed him, in a way, because intent is always easier to imagine than integrity. But intent doesn't erase impact. "You didn't lose me that night," I said, my voice steady. "You lost me long before, when you decided I deserved a surprise instead of the truth. You chose drama over honesty, and that choice tells me everything about who you are." He lowered his eyes, silent. I shook my head slowly. "Honesty isn't an ambush," I said. That's when I realized that nothing here was about reconciliation. Nothing was about fixing what had been broken. It was about witnessing the consequences of choices and choosing what comes next for myself. I walked away then, not angry, not bitter, not defeated. I walked away awake, free from the doubts, the endless questions, the moments of hesitation that had once ruled my mind. Later that evening, alone in my apartment, I reflected on the night upstairs, how close I had been to missing the truth entirely. If he hadn't asked me to come up, if I had hesitated, if hope had still outweighed instinct, I might have stayed blind. Betrayal is strange that way. It does not always destroy. Sometimes it clarifies. Sometimes it frees you from the need to rationalize, to forgive before understanding, to wait for someone to choose you when they have already chosen otherwise. I didn't expect them to be there, but I did expect more from him. And now, I expect more from myself. I realized, sitting alone in the quiet, that betrayal is not something you survive by explanations. It's something you survive by acknowledgement, by recognition, by walking away with your eyes wide open, carrying clarity instead of confusion. That night, I didn't sleep in despair. I stayed awake in reflection, awake to the reality that trust had limits, and that self-respect is more powerful than forgiveness when it is not earned. He asked me to come upstairs. I didn't expect what I would find, but I am glad I went. Some truths only reveal themselves when you stop avoiding them, when you allow yourself to confront them fully, and when you choose to act not out of anger, but out of clarity and self-possession. Betrayal taught me many lessons that night. It taught me to trust my instincts, to observe carefully, to recognize patterns long before they culminate in disaster. It taught me that hope, while beautiful, cannot replace discernment. And it taught me that leaving is sometimes the most honest, the most powerful act of all. I didn't leave angry. I didn't leave broken. I left awake, alive to my own strength, awake to the reality that I deserve truth, clarity, and respect. I left carrying the kind of understanding that cannot be taken away by anyone else. The upstairs room, the open door, the frozen faces, they remain in my memory, but not as haunting images. They remain as a lesson, a pivot point in my life, a reminder that clarity is sometimes found in the moments of deepest betrayal, and that walking away with eyes wide open is its own kind of victory. And in that, I finally understood. Betrayal is not only about what others do, it is about what you choose to see, what you refuse to excuse, and how you decide to live once the truth is finally undeniable. That night, upstairs, I did not lose. I gained clarity. I gained freedom. I gained myself.